This is the CNC Router Tips Podcast, episode 46.
People that run their business right, they're like, Bill, the last thing I want to do is see another bill from you. But when I have a question, I feel better talking to you. And, worse yet, or better yet, when I have a claim, I know it's covered. I don't have to worry about losing my business. I don't have to worry about losing my assets within my family.
This is the CNC Router Tips Podcast, a show which answers one question from you, the listener, about CNC router tables, CNC software, hardware, web hosting, and business. I'll help you get started in your CNC hobby or business and help you cut through the confusion.
Today's episode is sponsored by themakersguide.com. The Maker's Guide. Useful tools for makers.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the CNC Router Tips Podcast. I'm your host, Bill Griggs. Today, I am very fortunate to have with us on the show Bill Basher. Bill is a person that I met at a local business meeting that is really been beneficial to the growth of my business and everything. And we're here today to talk with Bill about his specialty, but we'll get into that in a moment. How are you doing today, Bill?
I'm doing well today, Bill. Thank you. How are you?
I'm doing wonderfully. Thank you. Yeah, a great first name, by the way.
Even better last name.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So now you and I had kind of an impromptu discussion the other day. We were at the More networking meeting. That is a business referral club that we both belong to.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity to get together and meet other people in other industries and share ideas, not necessarily industry specific. So it's a great group. It's well worth our time, and I hope other people will find that beneficial to them too. More networking group has been a great place to share ideas across different industries and local businesses, and it's been reassuring to know that I have some other friends and compatriots in the business that share the struggles, and we can share our ideas there, and more importantly, share referrals to other businesses. It's been a great opportunity for me as an agent.
Now, for those who may not be familiar with what a networking group is exchanging business referrals, it's a little bit of a situation where, let's say, I am looking for a particular type of customer who might be interested in signs, for instance. And you may know someone who's interested in sign, or who's looking for a sign, and you just give me a referral, and that's how I build my sign business. Now, your business is what, Bill?
I am a licensed New York State property and casualty insurance agent. I'm an insurance guy.
Mm-hmm. And your specialty is in property insurance, business insurance, or?
Yeah, my specialty is commercial insurance. Most of my book of business is commercial with personal insurance, your homeowners and your auto and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So now this all came up because you recently gave a presentation at the More Networking Group where you talked about some of this. And it was very appropriate for me because I'm in the same situation that a lot of our listeners are right now, where you're establishing a business. And, this is in the early phases of setting up a business. And there are several things that you need to be thinking about when you're getting started in business. And one of them is protecting yourself with insurance.
Yeah, this is something that is often overlooked by a lot of the customers I come across, and it's not that complicated, and it's something that can be easily fixed.
Yeah. Now, I did a little research, and I started looking around and thinking about it. Now, a lot of the people talk about small business and don't realize just how big a part of the U.S. economy small business is. And, I got to thinking about it. Now, I like to call this cottage industry, but there are other terms for it now. In fact, one that's popular right now is the homepreneur. And I did a little research, and one of the things that I found, and this is an article that came from fastcompany.com, and I'll put a link in the show notes to it. But it says that 34.3 million businesses are home-based right now. So 53% of the small businesses in the U.S. are home-based businesses. And, that's pretty impressive. But when you think about it, this is a stat that I hadn't heard before. Of the ones who are home-based businesses, 7 out of 10 succeed. That's staggering. 70%. I had not heard that stat before I saw this. But you're stacking the deck against yourself if you don't treat this like a business right from the start. So one of the things that makes me think about this $427 billion industry annually is the need for to be properly protected, to have insurance to cover your losses. So, what things should new business owners be thinking about?
It's the basics. Anytime you are thinking about starting or working out of your home or transitioning from a hobby to a real business, is first make sure you have a conversation with your insurance agent who currently handles your personal property or your personal homeowner policy. They may or may not have a policy that can be offered through that may be offered through their homeowner, or an endorsement might be available through their homeowner policy that can suffice to cover their exposures. So that's the first big step. Anytime you start a business, talk to your agent first. Mm-hmm. Then beyond that, then we can get into the details of, let's talk about my liability. Let's talk about my property coverage or exposures. And we had an interesting conversation just talking about the difference between having a building that's on your premises that's specifically designed for your commercial industry, your business, versus having it actually within your house. Mm-hmm. So for example, if someone has a wood shop in their house, in their garage that's attached to their house, what you typically see is someone that has an attached garage to their house, and they're working out of it, and they have a small wood shop in there, and they want to turn that hobby interest into a business. That is a big deal because you may have to rate your entire house as a commercial structure, and that has a big impact, or may have a big impact, on the type of coverages that you have, and there's cost considerations with that.
Whoa. So you're saying in some cases you may have to rate your entire home as a commercial space.
From an insurance standpoint, yes.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
That's a new one to me. And is this something that's determined by the underwriters or the particular insurance company, or how is that dealt? Because I know that's a shocker for many people.
Yes. So the considerations that they'll consider is, A, what type of business is it? And B, what amount of, if any, public foot traffic do you have coming into your house?
I see.
So what I tell folks, and the best advice I could give is, if you have that is expecting public foot traffic into your house, and or you're doing some serious manufacturing in your house, consider putting a separate structure, a detached garage, next to your house, but on the same deed, or if possible on a separate deed, to make it easier to write from a commercial standpoint, from an insurance standpoint.
Okay. Now, you mentioned foot traffic. That includes your customers coming over to pick up your work, or coming over to consult with you for design work, that sort of thing. Does that include postal carriers?
Yeah, and let me take a step back. That's a good question. So when I say public foot traffic, if you have a client that's coming to simply pick up a product at your house and it doesn't happen on a regular basis, that's not so much of a concern to most insurance companies if it's rated as a homeowner policy. It's when you have a studio where you're expecting regular foot traffic, right? Because the only way you get your work done is by having your customers come into you. Or you have a display of your wares or your products at your house and people are coming in there to purchase them. Or you have an office that you bring clients into your house to consult with as you sit at your office. That is kind of the tipping point for insurance companies. So the postal carrier, not so much of a big deal. The person to occasionally come and pick up a wood sign that somebody made, not so much of a big deal. It's that regular foot traffic. And here's another tipping point. You put a sign up. You put a sign up on your house, and it says Bill Griggs CNC routing machine bits, or whatever you have. Then that is really the point when the insurance companies will say, you need a separate commercial policy now.
Sure. Okay. All right. So for most of us, then that's not going to be an issue, which is a load up in mind, because I typically don't have foot traffic. Almost all of mine is done exclusively on the internet. So that's easier. But if I had, for instance, a photo studio, that would be a real concern.
Yes, potentially.
Yeah, because the people would be coming into the home into the business in the home to have their photos taken. So, okay, that makes great sense. Thank you for clarifying that.
Now, Ken, I'd like to go in the direction in talking about internet sales and cyber liability.
Mm-hmm. Sure, go ahead.
So I understand a lot of the home-based businesses, they're selling their wares online, whether through Etsy, etc. This is a very new market to the industry. It's called cyber liability. Mm-hmm. What that means to you is if you're collecting payment information from your clients via the computer, okay, and you have or obtain their personal information, credit card numbers, checking account numbers, routing numbers, and somebody hacks into your computer and obtains that information, you, as the person who sold that to them, is liable. Mm-hmm. And most in the commercial insurance industry, they're now just getting a grasp as to how to price for that and offer that liability insurance. There's many companies out there that will offer it, but that's the challenge now, to include cyber liability for these smaller homegrown businesses that are feasible for them. I'll give you some examples. Yeah. So again, an example is someone that is obtaining their credit card information from their customers, and they lose that. We talked about that, right?
Yeah.
And someone breaks into your computer or hacks into your computer and obtains their personal information and then ultimately causes harm to your clients. That's cyber liability, and not all insurance policies out there are endorsed to cover that, or some won't even offer that because they're just not set up to do so right now.
Sure. Now, if you're using a payment gateway like PayPal or Amazon Pay, where you never maintain that information, the credit card information, then this wouldn't apply. But if you're taking direct credit card transactions either through like a point of sale system,
That's correct,
or something, then this cyber liability insurance would be a good fit. Is that correct?
correct,
Yeah.
correct, yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, that one wasn't even on my radar. That's great to hear about that. So yeah, so now there are different types of liabilities that we need to be worried about. Now let's focus in on our key audience here, the folks who'd be listening to this, CNC Router Tips podcast. For the most part, they're home-based businesses, mostly woodworking. In some cases, some metalworking, but they're fabricating things in their garage or whatever. So, what types of things do they need to watch out for? From a liability standpoint.
So, good question. So, first, as they take their products and sell them to their clients, they have to think about product liability. And for example, someone that makes Windsor chairs, and they sell them either online or at the local farmer's market, and somebody sits in a chair and falls down and gets hurt, that will require a commercial liability policy to respond to that type of claim.
Okay, and that's a commercial liability policy would cover that. Now, what about during the manufacturing process? What do they need to be concerned about there?
Well, as you're working in your home, creating whatever you're creating, like I said, chair or table, it's your property that you're using to make the product. And so all the tools that you have in your garage, in your shop, should be, you want to make sure they're covered, which they can be covered in some cases under your homeowner policy. Some homeowner carriers are okay with having some commercial equipment inside of your house. Some are not. And if your carrier for your homeowners is not okay with that, you need to obtain a separate commercial policy to protect yourself in the event that your house burns to the ground and you lose your tools and your equipment, to respond and reimburse you for that.
Okay. So let's say, for instance, you buy we'll take my case. You get a new milling machine, okay, to manufacture your parts. You would need to insure that for loss of that equipment, for the use of it. What type of policy would you put on that?
So it would be a separate commercial policy. I think in your case, and again, depending upon, there might be an opportunity for your homeowner carrier to cover that. Always check with them.
Yeah.
Without that being an option, a separate commercial policy that would cover both your liability, your products, okay, and cover your commercial property would be a good fit.
Okay. Are commercial policies much more expensive than your traditional homeowner's policy?
Good question. Surprisingly, there are policies designed out there for the incidental type businesses that are run out of someone's home, that is supplementing their income, or is someone is using this business as something to supplement their retirement, or something they're doing in retirement as for fun, or because that's simply what they do and enjoy. Those policies are out there and can range in cost between $300 to $500 a year that cover you. They provide you both with the liability for your operations and your product liability and your general liability.
That's not bad at all. When you think about it, one case of now in the case of somebody being hurt, that's another thing. But one case of somebody using your product and suffering a loss, that really can end up being much more costly to you than, you know, the $300 or $500 that you spend over the course of the year just to protect yourself from that.
Yeah, insurance is cheap at the end of the day when you think about the potential exposure that people face in their lives and their business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, now you're a woodworker, and I think we discussed this before. You, what types of things did you make when you were doing your woodworking?
I made tables, hall tables, end tables, maybe a dresser, a desk, things like that.
Mm-hmm. Were you doing it commercially at the time, or?
No, it had always been a hobby for me since I was a kid, and then just wanted to spread my wings to do something different, and thought I was pretty good at it, and people would say they like to buy it from me, and the next thing you know, I was at the farmer's market selling tables.
Mm-hmm. Now, how did that evolve? You know, what became of it?
Well, it started out, people were mostly asking me to custom build a table or a cabinet or an end table. And then eventually I kind of hit on one design that seemed pretty popular. People like, hey, why don't you sell that at the farmer's market? So I made a couple tables, brought them down there, and I had a great time on my Saturday mornings with my kids and my father, and sold tables. And eventually I dabbled in photography, and I started selling pictures as well too, and did some other stuff. And so it kind of morphed into photography and woodworking.
Mm-hmm. Now, when you were doing this, I mean, you obviously, if you were building tables, you had to have a fairly nice wood shop from it. What types of equipment did you have?
I had a mortiser, table saw, chop saw, the Craig pocket hole joint setup. I love those things.
Mm-hmm. They're awesome.
And mortising, it's pretty simple joinery. But yeah, I invested in a good table saw and stuff like that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now, so was your shop located in your home or out, in a separate outbuilding?
It was in my home, attached garage.
Okay. Yeah. So in that example, if you were a new guy and you suddenly find yourself making custom furniture at the farmer's market, what kinds of policies would you have gotten? You'd obviously get a one on your equipment, one for your liability, for your consumer. What other things would you have considered?
Well, it would have been one policy. It would have just covered my property and my liability exposure mm-hmm. for my products. So in this case, the homeowner carrier, it was purely incidental, and there was no, real, there was no foot traffic whatsoever in my property.
Right.
So there's no real exposure there. So it would be one vendor type of program through an insurance company that would cover that. So yes, covering your liability and your property coverage.
Gotcha. Now, I'm going to back up a minute and talk about you for a second some more.
Okay.
So now, I don't imagine that when you were 5, you said, when I grow up, I want to be an insurance guy.
Sure.
What were you? How did it all come about? When did you get into this career? What were you doing before?
Before I had become a producer, a licensed agent, I was working in claims for another insurance company, Progressive. And it's just, the insurance industry is one of those industries you kind of fall into out of college.
Okay, well, take us back to college. What were you studying? Yeah.
So college for me, I was a communications major, and just got out of college and kind of just looking for a job, and didn't have my sights set on anything in particular. And the local industry was, insurance, and you fall into it. And then you don't take it seriously at first, and then eventually you dive deeper and deeper and deeper, and then you learn more and more, and then you grow within it. That's the best way to describe it.
Okay, so I assume you answered an ad somewhere for a job, and that's
Correct.
How it went. Or one of your relatives said, "Hey, Joe's hiring." How did that work?
It was a combination of both. Actually, I knew somebody local that.
And this.
So yeah, it was a combination of both.
Yeah, so you find yourself in the insurance business, and you said the first part of that you were doing what?
I was handling auto claims.
Okay. Were you going out and doing the actual investigation of the auto claim? Going to the person's place after the wreck, or what was?
Yeah, I was the adjuster that would come out and write an estimate for the damages to your car. Mm-hmm. I would do the investigation.
Okay.
And find out who's at fault and figure out coverage and stuff like that. So yes.
All right. So you did that for a number of years, and then what was the transition like from there?
Eventually it just you grow into the position, and eventually I made my way into an entry level position, entry level position, and then I transferred down to Gaithersburg, Maryland.
Okay, just outside of D.C.
Yeah, worked down there for a number of years, and then became a manager. And the industry was booming at the time, as was the company. And then you get kind of wrapped up in corporate America and that lifestyle, and and then eventually I found my way back to New York State.
Okay, and it's still with the same company?
No, excuse me. Progressive. I moved back to upstate New York in 2003 with Progressive. I transferred back up here as a manager and as an auditor, and worked there for four more years. And then I was one of the lucky ones in 2008 or 2009 when the economy took a turn, and I was one of the lucky ones that was let go. And I say that comfortably now because, it's getting into this side of the industry has been a blessing.
Yeah. So you got let go, and now your new company is Tanner Insurance Agency. Is that correct?
Yes. Yep. Tanner Insurance Agency.
Okay.
Yes.
So how did you begin to work with them after you were let go? What was that like?
Well, it was, I knew enough about one side of the industry, claims, to know that I didn't want to get back into it.
Gotcha.
And I knew just enough about the other side of the industry, which is, sales and the agency side of it, to know that I wanted to be a part of my clients' growth. I wanted to be a part of their business when they had the chance to grow and expand. I wanted to be there, a part of that growth, as opposed to the claim side where you're literally taking a bad situation, trying to make it worse, and then once the check is cut, you go your way and they go their way, and hopefully you never meet again.
Yeah.
But that's the essence of the industry. And it doesn't really lend itself to developing that long-term relationship that we all like to have with our customers. Mm-hmm. You like to see them again and again.
Yeah, because with commercial insurance, I would imagine that there's a chance as the business grows to upsell them into better products that better cover their needs and better cover the growth in their company. Like when you start out and you've only got a $100 table saw, that's one thing. But, when you've grown your business and have 50 employees and you've got a computer-controlled, lumber mill or whatever, that's a whole different level, and it's a whole different level of insurance that they'll need as well.
It is enjoyable to watch a business grow, and honestly, my job is to let those people do what they enjoy doing and what they're the expert at, and then use me as the consultant and say, hey, Bill, this is what's going on. Help me sort this out. so they don't have to worry about the insurance. And you can appreciate this, and I think most of your listeners do too. You'd rather make the phone call and spend a few moments with somebody and put yourself at ease, so you don't have to worry about it. And it really is doesn't take long to speak with an agent, and do it a couple times a year to stay on top of things. And insurance is about peace of mind.
Yeah. And, it's the last thing that you want to know, or to be blindsided, thinking that you're covered for something when you're not. And a lot of times your homeowner's policy doesn't automatically cover things if you're trying to do business out of your home. And so you need to know, preferably in advance, what you're covered for. What's the best way for them to have that conversation with an agent?
Well, with a simple homeowner policy or an auto policy, if you spend 10 minutes with your agent, they'll be able to understand, or they should be able to understand, what your needs are. But really, beyond that, if you have a commercial business, a visit from your agent or certainly a productive phone call with them can get everything together, and so the agent can understand what the needs are and make sure that they address them properly. And then once the policy's in place, keep in touch.
Yeah.
What's going on? Are you growing? Are you taking credit card information now? Are you, because that happens, right? Before you know it, your business is booming, and all of a sudden you got people coming up to your house on a regular basis, and before it was okay, but now maybe it's not. As a growing business, you're not thinking about that necessarily, about the insurance implications. You know what I mean? Realistically speaking.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not until it kind of smacks you in the head, usually, that you think about these things. But if it's something that if you think about it ahead of time, or you at least put it on your checklist of things to discuss, that you'll be better off in the long run. Nobody wants to pay insurance bills. That's a given. But also, nobody wants to be uninsured.
Yeah.
When it comes, so it's one of those things that is in my opinion a necessity for a growing business. So
it's peace of mind, and I get this all the time, from my clients, and who are people that run their business right. They're like, Bill, the last thing I want to do is see another bill from you, but when I have a question, I feel better talking to you, and worse yet, or better yet, when I have a claim, I know it's covered. I don't have to worry about losing my business. I don't have to worry about losing my assets within my family, etc. Which brings me to a small point I wanted to make sure I brought up.
Sure.
If you don't mind if I jump into this.
Feel free. Both feet.
Both feet. Here it goes. So one thing that small business owners should consider is.
Today's episode is sponsored by The Maker's Guide, creator of the Triple Edge Finder. Get the edge you need, save time and frustration on your CNC project, and make setup a snap. Save time and material. Set up your workpiece on your CNC router table faster than ever. Accurately set your Z-axis height first time, every time. Automatically locate the corner or edge of a workpiece. Reset your starting point in the middle of a program. Quality crafted right here in the USA on US-made CNC machines. Get the edge you need today. Go to www.themakersguide.com/edge. The Maker's Guide. Useful tools for makers.
One thing that small business owners should consider is, at one point or another, they should consider creating a separate entity. And what I mean by that is most small businesses start out as a DBA, or a sole proprietor. Well, that's fine, but remember, when you do that, anything that happens on your business side of life can impact your personal assets and your personal side of your life. There's no legal separation between the two.
Mm-hmm.
So you have something bad happen at your house, or you're involved in a bad car accident, your assets, your business assets are fair game. if you're liable and if there's a big lawsuit coming your way, they can come and take away your business assets and vice versa, business to personal. So the best piece of advice I give folks is consider creating an LLC or S Corp or I Corp and separate legally the two halves of the one half, your business half and your personal half. Aside from a very good insurance policy and an agent, separate them legally.
Yeah, I know that's very great advice, actually, and I'm glad that you brought it up because it is one thing that I've been planning to do another episode about, and that's forming the different types of business entities. There are advantages and disadvantages to each one, and that needs to be discussed because when you get out of doing this as a little hobby, there are protections and advantages tax-wise and liability-wise of forming an LLC or an S corp or whatever. So I'm glad you brought that up. It's very good, and it's not expensive to form an LLC. It's usually less than $1,000, $500 range for most cases.
Yeah, I can't give you any legal advice. I can't tell you how that works, but yeah, you're right. From what I've heard, it's not as complicated or as expensive as people might think.
Yeah, and neither of us are lawyers, and
no, we're not.
Yeah, consult a lawyer before you do any of this stuff. But anything that would impact your legal liability, contact a lawyer. So, just so you're aware of that, folks. But this is a great general discussion because I think that this is a topic that for most of us when we're going out and we're just making trivets or whatever and we're going to be selling those at the local flea market, we're not really thinking about insurance or whatever, but it's something that we do have to consider as we go forward and we grow the business because that's our goal, is to grow our businesses. So, we got to do it the smart way.
Yeah, and there's a lot of small steps that can be taken, and hopefully I put together a short but pretty good list of things that if you just think about, it's an easy conversation. Mm-hmm. It's an easy conversation with your agent, and it's in most cases an easy fix. The only thing I want to make sure that people understand is what I see often, and I hope not everyone will make this mistake, and hopefully I can persuade people to heed this advice. People that suddenly want to go big, make sure you consult with the agent before you start laying plans down to build or expand something within your house, or all of a sudden put a sign up on your house. It's not the insurance agent's business to tell you how to run your business, but it is their business to tell you how your business might be impacted by insurance. So, like I said, if those folks out there want to go big and want to do something out of their home or expand something within their home, make sure you consult with that agent. There's some very, very good advice out there that, if you take care of that first and then build later on, then you will find that your premiums could be potentially more reasonable. Mm-hmm. And number two, it will be easier to get the appropriate coverage. And three, you'll get good coverage or better coverage if you consult with your agent before you jump in with both feet.
Yeah. Excellent. I always consult first. Take action second. Yeah, that's awesome. You have you just mentioned a short list of questions that you have that people should ask, and I don't know if you might have that in written form that we could share with our listeners. That'd be great if you do. If not, I understand.
Well, I have them. I have some notes here in front of me, and I can rattle off most of the highlights here if I can.
Yeah, and if you do that, with your permission, I could convert that into a quick little document that I could put up for them, and they could just download it.
Yeah, sure. Would you like me to send it to you, or want me to go through it now?
Well, let's go through it now, and in rapid succession. We won't have to explain a whole lot of it, and then then maybe you could send it to me later, and I'll work on that.
All right, fair enough. So are you ready for it?
I am ready.
Okay. So first, consult with your agents. 2, are you going to have regular foot traffic coming into your house, public foot traffic coming into your house? 3, are you selling online, and are you taking personal information, storing it, and or taking credit card information? 4, if you're going off premises to sell your items, going to a farmer's market versus just selling it out of your house or selling it to specs out of your houses are two different things. Mm-hmm. Going off premises is an important part. 5, if you're going off premises, your business property, if you bring stuff with you, make sure you have a discussion with your agent about covering that, because it changes when you take your property off premises and how it might be covered under your homeowner policy or your commercial policy for that matter. 6, if you put a sign up on your house telling you you're open for business, that's kind of a big deal that's a tipping point between commercial insurance and personal insurance. Mm-hmm. And then finally, if you're hiring employees, forgive me, I should have discussed this earlier, but if you go big enough where you have an employee part-time or full-time, totally different ballgame now. You're talking about payroll taxes, you're talking about disability insurance and workers' compensation insurance, which are all relatively easy to put together from once you speak with your agent, but make sure you have that discussion. And finally, consult with an attorney about talk about creating a separate entity, an LLC or an S Corp or I Corp, that will separate you legally from your personal assets.
Excellent. Why, that's a great list, and I'm sure our listeners will love to look at that and to follow that advice, because I'm sure this is a topic that's going to come up either today or in the future for them as they decide to move forward building their business. So I do appreciate you sharing that with us, Bill. It was awesome information.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on. This is I enjoyed it, and hopefully this is all very helpful.
Well, I think you did a fantastic job, and I know that this is your first podcast episode interview, but I have a feeling it might not be your last. So I hope I made you feel comfortable here on our show.
Yeah, certainly you did, Bill. You you put me at ease from the beginning about this. A little apprehensive at first, but you did a great job, and this was easy to do, and hopefully it helped. And maybe if this was good enough, I'd be happy to talk to you again.
Oh, well, fantastic. Yeah, the good part about doing podcast episodes like this, where you talk to somebody about a specific topic that may come up, is sometimes you get to learn things that apply directly to you as the interviewer. What you're saying is just the information I need just in time. So I do believe heavily in just in time learning, and so this is this is great, because this stuff directly applies to me, and I'd say about 60% of my audience. So hopefully they will enjoy it and appreciate it as much as I did. So, good. So again, now you're Bill Basher, and if people wanted to know how to reach out and contact you, now I know that you mentioned to me that you're licensed in New York only, but they still may have questions, and I know our audience is worldwide. But how would they reach you, Bill?
Yeah, the best place to reach me is my email, and that is Bill, Bill, at TIAINS.com.
Okay, and you're with the Tanner Insurance Agency Incorporated, so that's actually what your TIAINS stands for. So that's
there you go.
yeah. So I realize that folks may be hesitant to talk sometimes with insurance agents, but you're very easygoing. You're very knowledgeable about your subject, and that's one of the main reasons why I asked you, because I felt comfortable talking to you. I am so appreciative of you for taking the time out of your day to come on and talk about this subject with our CNC Router Tips group.
Thank you, Bill. You've been very gracious as well, too. My pleasure.
All right. Now, before I go,
yes,
there is one question I'd like to ask you. If you couldn't fail, everything was in place as far as all the resources you needed, everything, was firing on all the cylinders. Everything in the universe was making its way towards making whatever project you were working on happen. What would you work on?
Wow. Project as in like hobby, or?
That's completely up to you.
Wow.
The universe is aligned just for you. You can't fail. What would you build? What would you work on?
What would I build? It's funny you ask. I have always wanted to dabble in creating new camping gear. Don't ask me why. My other interest is hiking. That's another story. But I've always been the type that will look at something and or ponder reverse engineering this sleeping pad or this backpack or this tool or this gizmo and say, what's another use for this? So if I had every resource available to me and the time to do it, I would love to be a quasi-inventor or, work for Thermarest or somebody like that. Osprey, who makes great backpacks, and help them design and build hiking gear. Silly, isn't it?
No, that's beautiful. That's a great answer. So, follow-up question. Now, this is the one where I said I wasn't going to punch, but
go ahead.
Why aren't you doing it?
I went so far at one point a couple of years ago to look into how to patent stuff. I have, my ideas. And I said to myself, if I could ever make a contact within this industry and see if this is feasible, so I haven't taken that leap of going so far as to invest money to go to a manufacturer, somebody that can make it happen, or invest in the tools and materials to sit at home and manufacture an alpha model of my prototypes. Just hasn't happened. I said to myself, I want to make sure I can do the insurance thing well, which, after doing this for this part of the industry for 8 years now, I'm getting to that point. Mm-hmm. The dreams are still there. I think if I'm true to myself, maybe I'll follow through in a couple of years. But that was my promise. I said, if I do this right, then it opens the door to other things. And I think you're a good example of that because you're living it right now, aren't you?
Oh yeah. Now I'm gonna challenge my listeners out there right now, because Bill and I met through a referral service. If you know somebody in the camping industry, give him Bill's email, bill@tiains.com. Maybe we can get the better sleeping bag or the better backpack out of this whole deal. That would be so cool.
You're going to open up a whole new industry for yourself. You're going to be Bill Griggs, where dreams come true. You're making your way into a different industry now. That's great.
Oh yeah, you never know what happens. I don't know where I'm going.
You're just enjoying the ride.
I'm just enjoying the ride. This is a wonderful thing. I mean, if you told me, now I'm going to get off on a tangent here, but if you told me 2 years ago that people in the thousands would be listening to what I had to say on any subject, I'd have laughed at you. If you told me that I would have a Facebook group with, thousands of people in it, I would have laughed at you. But here we are. And you know what? You never know where it's going to go. So somebody out there knows somebody in the camping industry.
True. Yeah, I know. I just sometimes think that we're so isolated in upstate New York that we haven't invented the computer or the phone to reach out. But it's that fear of the unknown thing. Every excuse that you've heard, I have it.
Yeah. Oh, we've all got them. I just watched a movie that got panned everywhere, but I thought was a good movie by Will Smith. It's called After Earth, and there's a quote in there where he says that danger is real, fear is a choice.
Is that the one he made with his son?
Yes, it is. Yeah,
I saw that. I like that movie actually.
Yeah, I did too. I guess we're the two people who probably should have gone and seen it and been interviewed in the survey, but it didn't do well box office wise. But yeah,
it's funny. Real quick, I won't go there very long, but
feel free.
When my kids do something or they're about to do something that they know will get them in trouble or make me mad or make their mother mad, I tell them, you are making a choice. Mm-hmm. Now, sometimes that comes across a little bit stronger, sometimes not so much. I said, you're about to make a choice. Mm-hmm. and then when they, if they make it the right choice, hey, good choice. If you make the wrong choice, I'd say, look, you had the option. Mm-hmm. And you chose not to take the other option. And I don't know, hopefully sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't, but that's the fun of parenting.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And kids will teach you new unthought of choices too.
Yeah, right. I'll give you style points for the creativity thought process there.
Fantastic. Okay, guys, we've been talking with Bill Basher about insurance and commercial insurance for your growing business. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the CNC Router Tips podcast, and that you'll have a great day.
Thank you, Bill.
You're welcome. I often mention many different types of software during the episodes, and hardware and cutters, and it can get a little confusing. So what I did was I put together a page on my website, cncroutertips.com/resources. And on that page, I list all sorts of resources there, from books to tools to software, all the things that I use that make my CNC experience better and easier. And I hope you'll check it out. So again, it's cncroutertips.com/resources. Now, if you'd like to have your question featured on the air, here's how. Need help? Ask me about your CNC router question on my podcast, the CNC Router Tips Podcast. I'll be glad to help or try and get you the help you need. I want this podcast to be a fun and personal experience for everyone, and helpful. So let's keep it real and ask sensible questions. Please use common sense and show courtesy to everyone. That way everybody wins. Here are some guidelines to ensure that your question is qualified to be featured on the show. Please keep your questions under 1 minute in length. If it goes a little over that, that's fine, but don't ramble. If you have a website and URL, you're allowed to share it, but only once during the recording. Spammy or disrespectful or deeply private questions will not be considered for the podcast. If you need to ask more than one question, just make each question a separate voicemail. Okay, fantastic talking to you again. I'm Bill Griggs for CNC Router Tips. I hope you have a great day.